The night I learned that radiation isn't to the most dangerous invisible force in the world was the same night La Recoleta Cemetery tried to bury me inside one of its mausoleums. The irony is that I've spent half my life teaching graduate students how the dead can hurt you and how energy simply disperses with time. I've lectured about neutron scatter, gamma leakage, decay chains, all the physics behind what lingers and what doesn't. And yet, on a warm Buenos Aires evening, surrounded by thousands of ornate tombs and a city of marble silence, I found myself confronted with something that defied every principle I've ever sworn my career on. I wasn't a YouTuber, a ghost hunter, or a thrill seeker. I was a nuclear scientist who believed the world was built on measurable laws. I held that belief for 42 years, right up until the moment the dead said my name. My name is Dr. Michael Robert Caldwell. I work at Los Alamos National Laboratory, specializing in neutron radiation diagnostics and post-incident forensic analysis. If something glows, leaks, decays, spikes, or threatens to detonate, I'm the guy who gets sent in with a dosimeter, a clipboard, and a prayer no one will ever admit to saying out loud. But I wasn't in Argentina for anything dramatic, at least not officially. The US Department of Energy had sent me on a quiet scientific exchange with Comisión Nacional de Energía Atómica. Our research team was studying unexplained residual radiation readings near the 1960s nuclear test sites in Patagonia. My schedule was tight, but I managed to carve out one free afternoon in Buenos Aires before returning to the United States. And of all the stupid, random, innocent decisions of my life, I chose to spend that afternoon visiting La Recoleta Cemetery. I had seen pictures of the place, rows of elaborate mausoleums, stone angels staring into the sky, narrow passages like a European village made entirely of tombs. I figured it would be a peaceful walk, something historical, something quiet. Nuclear work makes you hungry for silence. Silence is predictable, measurable, controlled. I took a cab from the hotel, feeling strangely light after weeks of staring at Geiger counters and reading energy signatures. The city felt alive, colorful, loud in a way American cities aren't. Street vendors were laughing, cars weaving past each other like it was a dance. I felt normal, human. I should have known it wouldn't last. When I stepped through La Recoleta's main gate, it felt like crossing into a vacuum. The temperature dropped instantly by a few degrees. The noise of the city dulled behind me, as though a glass wall had lowered between the living and the dead. The cemetery was gorgeous in a haunting, frozen way. Marble crypts rose like miniature cathedrals. Angels and saints stood guard over names I didn't recognize but felt compelled to respect. The walkways were narrow, polished from centuries of footsteps. Cats lounged everywhere, lean, silent creatures whose eyes glowed oddly bright even in daylight. A tour group drifted by, their guide pointing toward Eva Perón's family mausoleum. I avoided them. I wanted space to breathe. When you work with radiation, you get used to being alone. I wandered deeper into the cemetery. The sunlight filtered through iron gates and stained glass windows in fractured beams. I found myself recording little notes on my phone out of habit. Observations about architectural decay, the ways humid climates affect marble, how the air smelled faintly of dust and something older. I wasn't thinking about ghosts. I wasn't thinking about anything supernatural. My mind catalogued the place the way it catalogued every unfamiliar environment. Temperature, brightness, airflow, structural age, and yet, beneath all that logic, something else stirred. It was subtle at first, a prickling at the back of my neck, a pressure in the air not connected to weather. I reached a narrow alley between vaults where the light barely reached. The walls seemed closer together, leaning inward like they were whispering. A gust of cold air brushed past me. Cold air shouldn't behave that way in mid-afternoon heat. My fingers twitched reflexively toward my backpack, wanting my instruments, wanting data, but I had none of my gear with me, just my phone, my wallet, and a mind too trained in physics to admit something was wrong. The cats had vanished, not wandered away, vanished. One moment they were everywhere, sitting on tomb lids, weaving between monuments, blinking lazily. The next, the alley was empty, still, utterly devoid of movement. I stopped walking. The wind died instantly. My breath felt heavier. I couldn't explain why at that moment I turned around, but I did. And standing at the far end of the alley, maybe 40 meters away, was a man. Tall, very tall, too tall, skinny, dressed in dark clothes that didn't match the climate. His head tilted slightly to the left, as if studying me. I squinted, trying to make out details, but his face was wrong, not blurred like bad vision, but indistinct, empty, as though light refused to land on it. My body reacted before my brain did. I stepped back. My foot hit a loose stone, scraping loudly. The sound echoed unnaturally long, bouncing between the mausoleums like a shout in a canyon. When I looked up again, the man was gone. Not walking away. Gone. I tried to rationalize it. A tourist, a caretaker, a trick of light, but nothing fit. I've analyzed emergency footage from nuclear sites where shadows distort, where bright light fractures into odd shapes, where heat waves bend outlines. But this man hadn't been distorted. He had been deliberate, observing, and the air pressure had changed when he disappeared. The same subtle shift I feel inside containment chambers when an automatic pressure system stabilizes after sealing. It was ridiculous to compare it to that, and yet the sensation was identical. I kept walking, telling myself I was fine, telling myself everything made sense. But La Recoleta didn't feel like a cemetery anymore. It felt like a reactor, silent, sealed, filled with invisible forces waiting for something to trigger them. I made the mistake of taking a narrow passage that dipped into deeper shadow. The further in I walked, the colder it became. Too cold, winter cold. My pulse quickened, my fingers stiffened with the temperature drop. In the middle of a warm Buenos Aires afternoon, I could see my breath. That was impossible, but the condensation hung in the air like white smoke. And then the whisper began. I froze. It wasn't wind brushing against stone. It wasn't distant tourists. It was behind me, beside me, inside the air. Soft, layered, dozens of voices speaking at once, too low to decipher. A sound like what I imagine old radio static would sound like if it tried to form words. My throat tightened. Every instinct I had, scientific, logical, human, screamed to get out. I turned around slowly, heart hammering. The alley behind me was empty, but the whisper grew louder, not from one direction, from all directions. As if the mausoleums themselves were speaking in fractured breaths. I backed away, nearly tripping. My hand brushed a mausoleum door, iron, cold, vibrating faintly. Vibrating. Iron doors don't vibrate without force. I snatched my hand back. The whisper burst into a clearer phrase, for the first time forming actual words. You brought it. My blood iced. That wasn't Spanish. That wasn't a phrase tourists would whisper. That wasn't anything human. The voice was layered. Male, female, old, young, all overlapping in one sentence. My heartbeat thundered. A wave of nausea hit me so hard I nearly vomited. I stumbled back, gripping the edge of the marble for stability. "Who's there?" I forced out, though my voice cracked in fear. Silence, thick, suffocating silence. Then another whisper, clearer this time. "You carried it here." I shook my head violently. No, that made no sense. I hadn't carried anything. I was a scientist, not a priest or a conduit for whatever this was. My chest tightened until it hurt. I took a step back and another. The whisper followed. From the places of fire, from the dead lands. My stomach dropped. Nuclear test sites, Patagonia, the scorched earth, the anomalies. I wanted to deny the connection. I wanted to say it out loud. but something in the whispering tone twisted through me like a cold wire, pulling up memories I didn't want to revisit. The day before I flew to Buenos Aires, my team in Patagonia recorded a bizarre energy fluctuation, gamma signatures spiking in patterns that looked almost rhythmic. Radiation doesn't behave rhythmically. It decays. It doesn't pulse. My dosimeter glitched twice that afternoon, spiking as though something had passed directly in front of me. My colleagues laughed it off as interference, but radiation doesn't just interfere. Something had been there, something we couldn't see, something that might not be measurable in units per hour. And now in this silent alley of the dead, the whisper said, I had brought it with me. I turned and ran, not walked, ran, the kind of run born from pure survival instinct. The whispering crescendoed into frantic overlapping voices. The air pressure shifted violently, slamming into my ears like the cabin of a descending plane. The lights dimmed, not sunset dim, but like someone had thrown a sheet over the sky. My foot caught on uneven stone. I stumbled, hit my shoulder on a marble wall, nearly fell. I didn't care. I sprinted. I reached an intersection of walkways and slowed down, panting, disoriented. The cemetery looked different. The layout had changed. I know that sounds impossible, but I had a map in my hand, an actual printed map from the entrance kiosk, and the paths in front of me didn't match the map anymore. Mausoleums I had seen earlier weren't there. New ones appeared. Names I didn't recognize glared at me from cracked stone tablets. I spun in place, breath ragged. My vision blurred at the edges. It felt like the entire cemetery had rearranged itself, like a labyrinth made of grief and stone. I forced myself to breathe slowly, the way we do before entering a contaminated zone. Deep inhale through the nose, slow exhale, focus, think. I traced my steps mentally, every turn I remembered, every landmark I had passed, but my memory seemed to distort. Details flickered in and out of clarity, like something was rewriting the path behind me. I reached for my phone to call for help. But the moment I touched it, the screen flickered violently with static. Lines of black shot across it. The device vibrated once as if struck by a surge of energy, then went dead. Gone. Dead. Completely dead. I turned toward a larger walkway, thinking it led toward the exit. But the moment I stepped forward, a figure blocked the path. The same tall, impossibly thin man I had seen earlier. Closer now. Much closer. His height was unnatural, his limbs too long, his posture rigid. His head tilted again, not curiously this time, but knowingly, like a scientist watching a specimen realize it's trapped. I stepped back, heart slamming. The man stepped forward without making a sound, not a footstep, not a breath, not even the rustle of clothing. He moved like a shadow cast by something not human. The whispering returned, but now it was different. It wasn't around me, it was coming from him. You opened the door, the layered voice said. You walked through decay, you measured the dead, and the dead measured you back. I shook my head, backing away, my chest tightening. I don't know what you are, I gasped. I don't know what you want from me. The shadow man stopped an arm's length away. The air around him felt wrong, dense, cold, pushing against my skin like invisible water. His outline flickered subtly, like heat distortion inverted. The whispering rose until my ears rang. You carried fire in your hands, the voice said. Now carry us. My back hit a mausoleum wall. The name above the door was in Spanish, but as I stared, the letters scrambled, reformed, twisted into English. My name. My full name. Dr. Michael Robert Caldwell, carved into marble. My breath caught. A stabbing pain shot through my chest. Not fear, actual pain, like my ribs were tightening around my heart. The whispering swelled into a scream. The shadow man stepped closer, raising an elongated hand toward my chest. And then, it happened. The moment his hand reached me, my vision went white. Not bright white, nuclear white. The kind of blinding flash you see in atomic test footage, the kind that turns sand into glass. My ears rang with pure static. My body convulsed once, violently. My knees buckled. I collapsed hard onto the stone walkway, gasping. When my vision returned, the shadow man was gone. The alley was empty. The temperature was warm again. The pressure in my chest eased slowly. My hands trembled uncontrollably. I staggered to my feet, leaning on the wall. The name on the mausoleum was no longer mine. I backed away, dizzy, nauseated. The cemetery no longer felt alive with voices. It felt silent. Too silent. A dead vacuum of still air. I stumbled toward the main walkway, and after what felt like 10 minutes of disoriented wandering, I emerged into open space. Tourists were taking photos. A guide was explaining Perón's history. Kids were laughing. Everything was normal. Everything except my trembling hands and the faint smell of scorched air that clung to my shirt. The same metallic, ozone-sharp smell I've encountered at nuclear sites where energy discharge had occurred seconds before. I left the cemetery without looking back. My phone powered on again as I exited the gate. Battery fully charged, no signs of malfunction. But when I opened the photo gallery, the last picture I had taken before entering La Recoleta was gone. In its place was a single black image with distorted static lines and one sentence across the middle. You opened the door. That night in my hotel room, I dreamed of Patagonia, of scorched earth humming with unseen energy, of something rising from the cracked soil and following me across continents, of voices carried in gamma spikes, of shadows learning to take form inside marble corridors of the dead. When I woke up, my hands smelled like ozone again. I flew back to the United States the next morning, barely speaking to anyone. I buried myself in work, convincing myself the experience was psychological, the result of stress, overwork, temperature fluctuations, anything rational I could cling to. But the evidence kept contradicting me. My dosimeter at the lab now spikes randomly whenever I walk past reflective surfaces. My phone occasionally glitches into static for a split second, then returns to normal. And twice in the middle of the night, I've awoken to the faint sound of whispering near my bedroom door, a layered voice saying the same words. You carried it here? I've spent my life studying invisible forces, forces that leave no fingerprints but can destroy you all the same. But radiation obeys the laws of physics. Radiation decays. Radiation weakens with distance and time. What followed me out of La Recoleta Cemetery does not weaken. It watches. It waits. And every night I feel the air pressure shift in my bedroom, the same way it shifted in those marble alleys. I lie awake holding my breath, knowing scientifically, instinctively, that something is standing in the darkness just out of sight. Tall and thin and patient, whispering in a voice layered with the dead. Not radiation, not energy, something older, something that measured me, marked me, and followed me home. And now, as I speak these words, I can feel it behind me again. The air is colder. My breath is visible. My dosimeter just clicked from 0 to an impossible spike. I think it wants me to tell you the rest. I think it wants you to hear this, because once it knows your name, it never leaves you alone again.